Joining me on today's episode of The Player Position is Bohemians Director of Football, Pat Fenlon. Pat played for a multitude of Irish clubs, winning titles at both Pats and Shells. As Pat moved on to becoming a manager, he led Shells to the brink of Champions League football and won 3 league titles. Before moving on to Bohs, where he won a further 2 league titles. He then took up an opportunity to move to the Scottish Premier League with Hibernian, where he reached 2 Scottish Cup finals in 2 years at the club. This is Pat's story. Pat, thanks so much for joining me. How are you keeping?
I'm all good. Adam, yourself?
I'm all good as well. Bohs have just appointed the new manager, and Alan Reynolds. So, how do you feel about that, and what do you think he'll bring to the club?
Yeah, obviously we're delighted to get Alan on board. Obviously, Alan quite well from, he played for me when I was at Shelbourne, so I've been involved with him at Waterford as well, and he's got a wealth of experience, obviously, around the league and our international level as well with the 21. So, real good appointment, and really happy that he's on board now.
And how are you finding the role of Director of Football? You've been there now. This is your 2nd year. How are you finding it so far?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a big job. There's a lot of work involved in it. There's a lot of aspects of the club that I've said this before. People probably see a Friday night, and that's where they look at. Obviously, first team playing, but there's so much more around the football side of the club that's going on. So there's a huge amount of work carried out on a daily basis and a weekly basis with all the teams that we have. So yeah, really enjoyable.
And obviously everyone knows you have a big say in signings and stuff like that, but what else does your job entail other than signings, and are you spending a lot of time doing other stuff besides that?
No, listen, my role around the first team is obviously to be, a help to the manager there, and around all the aspects of the first team. So at the end of the day, he's got the final say and everything. That's important. So but there's so much more that the job entails. Like I said, the day-to-day running of a football club, there's a lot of work goes on, whether that's football or non-football stuff. So my end of it is obviously purely football, and I'm enjoying that role because we've got different aspects of the club, from our youth and the things, our academy, which incorporates obviously our boys and girls academies. We've got a senior women's team, got a senior men's team. So there's a huge amount of work there. Obviously, we've purchased the Oscar Trainer Road, so that's something that's up and running now. So, like I said, there's a lot of other strings to it that go unnoticed probably from the people outside, but there's a lot of work and a lot of good work being done at all them levels.
And how exciting is it to be at Bohs at the moment? They have a really good young squad. Obviously with Alan now, they've got a really good manager in place. Do you feel like Bohs are in a real position to go on and really push on over the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, listen, the club has been in a good place for a period of time. On the pitch, we need to improve. We need to get better. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But like you said, we have a strong squad at the moment. We've a good young squad, a lot of good young players around the team. So I think it's set up quite well. Obviously, the end of last season was disappointing for us. We started off the season so well, and I suppose that raises expectations. So, but there should be always expectations around a club like Bohs, because it is a big club with a huge fan base and a hunger to succeed. So that's what we've got to try to do.
So I suppose with your career, obviously as a player and a manager, you've had so much success. But I just want to go back to the start. What was your life like growing up, and in terms of football and your experience playing football growing up as a kid? What was it like?
Yeah, I suppose it's completely different today's, where kids play football now. I suppose my days would have been obviously on the street like anybody else at that time, playing football morning, noon and night. And, I was probably spotted by the local postman that brought me down to Talca Rovers, and ended up playing for Talca Rovers for a few seasons. And then moved on there to Home Farm for a few seasons as well. And then ended up at Lourdes Celtic on the south side of Dublin in Crumlin. So, and then to my local club in Mount Bohs. So I suppose played a lot of schools football as well with Patrician College. So would have been very busy. Played a little bit of Gaelic as well. obviously with a school, primary school in St. Vincent's, and then Patrician College, and obviously played a little bit with St. Fergal's and Finglas as well, a long time ago, Gaelic and hurling. So yeah, it would have been purely just sport, I suppose. That's the way it was then. Sport and football was what we did, I suppose.
You moved to Chelsea, then you would have been about 15 or 16. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah,
and how was
16.
that like moving abroad?
Yeah, listen, it was different. I've always said it's probably, from a football perspective, I learned a lot, but I think from a life perspective, when you're going away at that age to live in a big city like London, you've got to grow up fairly quickly. So yeah, from life experience, it was a brilliant experience for me. The football end of it was obviously brilliant as well. Didn't go as well as probably I would have hoped, and came home. But I'd say, looking at the experience of being at Chelsea, it was a brilliant time.
Was it difficult moving abroad at such a young age, leaving your family and everything behind?
It was. Yeah, it was very difficult. I mean, like I said, it's, London then was a completely different city, and obviously Chelsea was a completely different football club. But when you're leaving home for the first time at that young age, in them days you just got on a flight and went yourself, and that was it. And you made your way to the training ground, a couple of buses to train, and the same then going to Stamford Bridge, so 2 or 3 tubes. So it was, like I said, you had to sort of grow up a little bit. We had a really good family that we lived with, London-based family in North London. Breda, the landlady, was from Killorglin and Kerry, so got a good ground, and then still had that Irish connection. So yeah, it was good times, very good times.
And then when you came back to St. Pat's then in 1987, you've been at Chelsea for 3 years. Did you feel like that was a big step up then, going playing League of Ireland men's football, or did you feel like it was actually a fairly easy transition for you?
No, it didn't, because I would have followed the League of Ireland before I went away, so I would have played obviously schoolboy football, but I would have went to League of Ireland games every weekend, so I would have known the league. And when I came back here, obviously a little bit disillusioned, and I wouldn't say I lost interest, but I definitely was a little bit disillusioned around obviously coming back. We all feel like when we come back that you feel a little bit of a failure, even though that's not the case. And then Brian Kerr asked me to go up and train my Pats for a while. I did that, and then he signed me for St. Pat's, and I ended up playing in the B team, which would have been a B team then, obviously a reserve side. And then days I was a centre forward, so I ended up playing in a striking partnership with John Ryan, who scored a hat-trick in the cup final for Bray against St. Francis a long time ago. And me and John hit it off with a good partnership, a good B team. And then halfway through that season, then I ended up making a breakthrough into the first team.
And you won the league then in 1990, so that was your first league title. How did you find that? And what were your memories of that league title win? Did it feel like a big moment for you, winning your first senior trophy?
Yeah, it probably I won't say it probably went over my head a little bit. I'd picked up a few injuries. I broke my leg a couple of times playing once for Ireland's under 21s in a Toulon tournament against Senegal, and then I broke in the first game back in a friendly or in a B team game against Shelbourne. So it was a little bit stop-start for me. But obviously it was a brilliant time. But like, I suppose when you're that age and you win the title, you probably think they're gonna come along on a regular basis, which is not the case. So really enjoyable, good bunch of players at Pats. Obviously Brian was a terrific manager, good staff around him, great bunch of players, and it was sort of a group of players that had been, along with myself, had been released from other clubs, and Brian put them together and moulded them into a very, very good football team.
And what was Brian like? Like, he's such a well-known figure in Irish football now. Like, what was he like with you at the time, like dealing with you on a personal basis? Was he good with you and the lads?
Yeah, listen, I was fortunate. I played for Brian in an under-17 international when Chelsea actually seen me against Northern Ireland down in the Mardyke in Cork. It was at the time when Liam Toohey had left the international setup, and Brian took 1 or 2 games after that. I think the next game actually Jack Charlton took. We played Scotland away in an under-17 international, but Brian took the one in Cork, and I did quite well down there. Scored a couple of goals against Northern Ireland and ended up going away. But Brian's just it's difficult to describe Brian. He's just got this, about him, that he's such a good manager, tactically very, 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 very astute at that time. And man management skills are very good. And he was able to mould, like I said, a group of players into that we thought we were invincible, even though most of us had been released from somewhere else. And he had that knack. in them days as well, we didn't have a lot. We'd probably 6 or 7 balls every night for training. So it was, and training on the tarmac or else in the pig pen at the back of Inchicore. So it was rough, but it was good. It was good, and like I said, Brian sort of galvanised and used all that to mould a team of that went on to be league champions, which was some achievement on his behalf. To be fair, when you think back to where he was and what we had budget wise, it was incredible achievement.
And in Europe, then the year after that title, you scored a volley against Dynamo Bucharest, which were obviously a massive team at the time in the European Cup.
Yeah.
What were your memories of that, like scoring a goal like that? And I know obviously you didn't go through the tie, but it still must have been an amazing feeling for you.
That was brilliant. Yeah, it was the All European Cup, and was in Talca Park. It was they were a very, very good side. They gave us a bit of a hammering over there, but they were I think it finished 4-0 over there, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was a brilliant night. I was very young, so it's a bit like winning the league. You sort of, it's only when you look back now and look at these things, they sort of mean a little bit more. I think at the time you're playing, so you just get on with it. But it was a great night, really enjoyable night. It was a decent goal as well. So yeah, very, very pleased with it.
And then in '92, you made the move to Bohs, started your affiliation with the club, and you won the PFAI Cup that year. You got Player of the Year. That season, did you feel like you were just like? Did you feel really, really confident going into every game? Like you were playing so well. Obviously, you ended up getting Player of the Year.
Yeah, well, I'd sort of start the shift then. Brian had moved me probably from a striker to a left-sided midfielder, and then I'd played with Eamon Gregg. Eamon Gregg was in that Pats team that I'd signed for, and Eamon had taken the job at Bohs with Murray Price. And Murray had been at Pats previously as well as the coach, so I knew them. It didn't take much settling in. I knew Murray and Eamon quite well. Murray was also the coach on the first course, the very first course a long time ago that I was involved in for a year when I came back from England. So it was an easy time to settle in. Eamon sort of moved me into that central midfield role, and I just enjoyed it. It was a really good season with some good players as well, good Bohs team, and I think Bohs hadn't won that for a while, so it was a bit like we are now, I suppose. So it was special to win the cup. We probably went into the cup final underdogs as well against a really good Cork team, experienced Cork team, and Tillo scored a great goal to win the cup. So I suppose that obviously you remember the game, but the celebrations back in Dalymount that night was something special as well. Like I said, because Bohs hadn't won a trophy for a while.
And obviously, after getting Player of the Year, you were still very young then. Did you ever have any kind of feeling that you wanted to go back to England, or you thought an offer might come in, or did an offer ever come in?
Yeah. No, absolutely. There was, as a young player, you've had a taste of it and you'd like to go back. There was a couple of clubs sort of half showing an interest, and in fairness to Eamon at the time, he made me aware of that, but it didn't fit right or didn't feel right at the time, so I didn't move back over. So I was enjoying my football. I think there's a lot to be said for, and it's where some of the players are now. There's a lot to be said for being at home as a young player and developing, and then maybe maturing a little bit more before you go over. So it just wasn't the right time or the right fit for me when it came back around. But I've no complaints about that. My career was okay.
Yeah, okay, is an understatement. And then 1997, you moved to Shells, and that kind of really started the great era of that Shelbourne team. Like in 2000, you won the League Cup and you got Player of the Year again. Like when you're like, it seemed like everywhere you were going, success just followed you. Like, did you feel like that during your career?
I don't know, because I'd left Bohs and I went to Linfield, so it was like it was probably an unusual move for me at the time. I'd really enjoyed my football at Bohs, and it just was changing manager. My dad had died as well, so it just felt I needed something different. And I went north to play for Linfield, and fortunate enough there as well. The first 4 months I was there, we won 4 trophies. So it was a good move, I suppose, if you look at it like that. And great football club as well. So thoroughly enjoyed my time there. And at the time, it was probably a proper professional football club, with a big, huge fan base, and again expectancy of winning things, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed that challenge of people expecting, supporters of a club expecting you to win things. I think that's key when you're a player, that you have to have that little bit of edge. So really enjoyed it. And then obviously came back to Dublin, and ended up signing for Rovers, I think, then from Linfield. Had one season there and then ended up at Shells, and spent 9 very, very happy years. at Talca Park. Like you say, special times as a player and as a coach there. But came into a really, really good side, Shelbourne side that Damien Richardson had built. We're a little bit unlucky in one season. We I think it might have been the fourth season that we ended up losing the League Cup final, losing the FAI Cup final, and losing the league in the last day of the season. So that was a little bit of a kick in the you-know-whats. And then obviously Damien moved on and Dermot came in, and we had a lot of success after that.
And then 2002, you became the player manager. Like, did you find it hard when you eventually decided to just retire and purely become a manager, because you were still like one of the best players in the league even when you were retiring?
Yeah, I did. It's a funny one, this, because I didn't actually say to myself, "Oh, that's it, I'm going to stop playing." I just sort of, I'd got the job on a. It was in the season of the winter to summer transition, so it was a short season, and Shells have offered me a job because I had a year left playing on my contract, and they said, "Well, we'll give you a 6-month contract to manage the team." So that was a bit of a gamble from my end of it, but I got sent off in a game in Inchicore against Pats. I think it might have been a cup match actually. Alan Kelly sent me off, and I just stopped playing after that. I didn't say that's it, I'm not going to play again. I just never did play again. And so obviously things went quite well on the coach and managing end of it. So it was probably just that was the fact that it was going quite well, and I just kept at the coaching and managing bit rather than getting back into the playing. And we had a lot of good players as well. So I'd had a really bad injury in 2000 when I came back and we won the double at Shells. And I just felt the next season I'd put a lot of effort to get myself fit. But a compound fracture dislocation in my ankle, which was put me out for 6 months. And like I said, I put a lot of work into getting back. And I just felt then the next season that I didn't feel I was at the level I was previously to that. Again, I'd won the Player of the Year, which was brilliant when we did do the double, but I just felt it corrupt me maybe a little bit in the next season when I did take over as manager. So, but like I said, it wasn't a conscious, I'm not playing again. It just the way it happened. I stopped playing and after being sent off, and then I never got back to it.
And 2003 and 2004, you won the league 2 years in a row. Like, that was such a great success and such unbelievable teams. Like, did you always feel like you had the potential when you were playing to be a good manager? Did you always feel like you had the traits and the qualities that you needed?
Yeah, some of the managers I had probably said too much to say as a player, but I hadn't. It wasn't in my head to become a manager that early. To be honest, I probably would have looked at getting in as an assistant manager or coach somewhere. But when Shells came to me, Ollie Bourne came to me and said, "Listen, we'd like to give you the job." It was difficult to turn down because I looked at the squad we had. I played in it. I knew a lot of them. Now, there was one or two of us coming to the end of our careers, so that was a difficult scenario that I would have been close to, and probably had to move them on and change it. So that was obviously something that I wasn't used to. Because as a player, obviously you're just preparing yourself and making sure you're ready to play, and then obviously take on board the game plan that the manager wants. But as a manager, that's completely different. So it was such a good side. When I got offered a job, I thought, yeah, I might get a better opportunity to take over a really decent side, to have a real chance of success. And Shells had really good teams through the 90s, and before I got there as well. And in 97, they had a really good side before that. So the club was on and up and was used to success, I suppose.
And I had Stuart Byrne on the podcast before, and he was talking about like the standards in training, and like he said, like training was like a game. Like at that Shells team, like they were just performing at such an elite level. And like obviously you were a big part of that as the manager. Like, what do you think it takes to create that kind of a culture in a team? Like, do you think that's difficult to implement, or do you think that was something that just kind of naturally happened with the characters you had?
Well, I think as part of your process of building a squad, bringing in players, obviously ability is huge, but it's what type of characters you're bringing into a dressing room as well is really important. And the dressing room I had at Shells was a very senior squad as such. They wouldn't have been old, but they'd have played a lot of games, and probably nearly managed themselves to a point away from the pitch, and even on the pitch at times, they were well capable of managing themselves. And even some of the younger players that I would have had around then will always say that when I meet them, or if I'm talking to them, they'll always say that group of players that were in that Shells team were, we're so experienced and so professional. But they drove them standards themselves. I think as a manager, you've got set standards. I think I've always believed that if you've got good players, you need to put real demands on them all the time, because if you don't, it can dip and drop off. And that's probably was my role, to make sure the demands were always high. That once they got to them demands, was to raise them again and lift them again and keep the man from them. Because I firmly believe that good players want that. They want to improve all the time. They're never at the stage where they think, I've got to the level I want to be. They always want to improve. So as a manager, you've got to make sure that the demands are right. It's got to be done right, obviously, but that the demands on good players, I think, is key for them to get themselves into the position they feel they can be as a player, and the best they can be as a player.
And probably some of the best memories for any Shelbourne fans would be that run in Europe in 2004, the first ever Irish team to get to the third round. So you beat Reykjavik, Patrick split, and then you're going to a game against Deportivo, who had gone to the Champions League semi-finals the year before, only losing to Porto, who had Mourinho. What was that like? Like, that must have been amazing. Not even just the Deportivo game and getting the draw in Lansdowne, but also the two games before that. Like, to get there must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was very special. It's sort of one of them that's you'll always remember. I think it was. I've always said this previously, before, when anybody asked, was the Reykjavik game was probably the hardest game there, because the expectancy for Shells at the time was that we should get through the first round, and now that's easier said than done. But the expectancy within the club, probably the budget we had, was that, and the players we had, that we should get through. And we were 2-0 down at one stage away to Reykjavik, and obviously clawed that back for a 2-2 draw and got through, and on away goal. So I think that sort of took the weight off the players' shoulders a little bit, and the game in Split was probably a really, really good performance. They were a decent side. There was very hostile atmosphere there. The crowd was in the stadium a long time before kickoff. We were 3-1 down coming into the game late, and we scored to make it 3-2. And you sort of felt that they got very rattled at the end of the game. There was a bit of trouble in the tunnel after the match, and sort of suited us a little bit, because you could sense that they were thought they expected to beat us easily and go through. They got some good players. You just felt after the game, when everything kicked off, you thought, yeah, they've got a little bit of concern now. And then the second leg is one of them matches. I've said this previously as well. It's one of them matches as a manager that everything goes to plan, and there's not many of them. You have a game plan, you stick to the game plan. You tell the players, listen, we have a game plan. If we need to change it, this is what we'll change it to. And when we had to flick that switch, we did, and we just scored 2 goals. And it was, like I said, it was just one of them nights where everything worked as a manager. Everything that you've set down, you've discussed with the players, you've shown them, it worked. And obviously it's probably I'd say one of the best nights I've had in the game in Ireland. It was just a special night for everybody. When you see people that put so much effort into a club like Shells at the time have that reward and that ecstasy at the end of the game, well, then it makes everything worthwhile. And then the next round was, obviously we went into the hat, and we could have drawn, I think, Real Madrid, a few other big clubs. Like you say, Deportivo had been in the semi-final the year before. Mourinho's Porto beat them, and we drew them. And I remember sitting the players down and showing them, there were tapes at that stage, I think. There was nothing online or anything like that, so showing them the 2 semi-finals from the year previous. So I suppose that sent a little bit of reality to the players as well, of what you're going up against. Just a special time. Deportivo game in Lansdowne was a brilliant night. Away from home, we actually performed quite well, even though we got beaten 3 in the end. We played really well. You talked about Stewie Burns. Stewie was immense in them 2 games. He didn't give Valor on a kick of the ball. And probably Wezzo came of age in them games as well. He just was, he showed what type of player and what at that level, against that level of opposition, he showed what he could do. And even after that, we got knocked out. We drew a French team. We drew Lille in the UEFA Cup, who were a top side as well. I think if you ask the players, they'll probably tell you that Lille were as good as Deportivo as a team. They were a very, very good side. And again, it was a bit of up and down, because we were 2-0 down in Lansdowne Road. I got back to 2-2. Glenn Fitzpatrick came. He was brilliant in that game. And then we got beaten over there. They were the top side. But a brilliant one. Just like I said, one of them that you experience as a manager. You don't get many like that, but that was a special time, definitely. Special group of players.
And you touched on Wes Houlihan there. Obviously, he went on to be an unbelievable player for Ireland. What was he like at that age? Did you know at that age, looking at him, like you'd been a similar player to him, like where you'd been a really top player in Ireland, but did you look at him and think, oh, he'll definitely go on to be Premier League, Ireland international?
Yeah, he always knew he was going to be a top player. Like, in fairness to Dermot Keely, Dermot brought him into the group. Before he'd gone, he'd been around it, and then, you know, I'd taken over. And Weza was he was a natural footballer. It was hard to coach Wezzo, you know, obviously guidance and giving him information. We, at that stage, we were sort of playing him in a wide area because physically he probably struggled a little bit, you know, and you could drift him in and play him in a little bit narrower. Yeah, but he was just natural ability. Even at that stage when he was only a kid, he was so strong on the ball, and people probably don't give him that or don't know that about him, that when he played physically, he was really strong. A strong upper body, and was able to look after himself for such a small player, a bit like myself, that he had that. He had a little bit of devilment as well where he came from. He had to grow up and grow up the hard way. He used to cycle up the training and throw his bike under the stairs and just go out and train. That's what I'm saying. Wezzo wouldn't have been prepared himself for training or anything. He was just natural football. He just wanted to play. And that's what he did. I think he's shown that in his career. He was a fantastic talent.
And then I suppose when you fast forward on to 2006, like, you won that league title, but that was obviously a mad season with like the financial troubles of the club off the pitch. Like, how was that for you, that whole season? Like, even though you won the title, it was obviously a bit of a mess.
Yeah, it was horrendous, because not just for me, for everybody. It was horrendous for the players, horrendous for the staff, because, you know, as a manager, you bring all these people in and they trust in you, and, you know, this group of staff that probably haven't been paid for 13, 14 weeks, you know, players that hadn't been paid for weeks as well, for them to go and do what they did and stick with it, and go over the line to win the league title, particularly on the back of they lost one the year before, like, was some achievement. I don't think anybody, unless you were in that dressing room, both as a player or staff member, you can understand the difficulties. Like, you know, we were full time; it was everybody's only job. Obviously, this was the only income coming in for most people. And whether you're a footballer or not, you've got to meet the bills and everything else that come with life. So it was a hard time, but it was, like I said, and that's why they probably are a special group of players, because they were able to, I wouldn't say they put it aside, but they put it to the back of their mind and got on with the job. Because we wanted to finish. We probably knew that the Shelbourne experience was coming to an end, and when we wanted to finish on a high, because I think we owed that to the people in the club as well.
And I remember Stuart said a story that, like, all the players kind of came together at one point and they were just like, right, we're not playing this game. And he said, you said, lads, I'm with you, but if you don't play the game, you don't get 3 points. If you don't get 3 points, you don't win the league. I just thought that was such an interesting story, how, like, you could just, even though you were going through it yourself, as much as the players were, you could just say, right, lads, we have to park it and just win the league.
I think it was what may have been Waterford. I'm not sure in Talca Park. I'm not 100%, but I think it may have been. You got to that stage where, you know, and we would have, if we didn't play, we didn't play. Like I said to the lads, look, if we're not going to play, then everybody's in that position and we don't. But like you said, also said, well, if you don't, and we don't pick up 3 points, well, then obviously that has a knock-on effect for everybody. So, and that's difficult. That's a difficult scenario, because, you know, the game finishes and, you know, there's still no salaries for the players. So that's always difficult. But, like, in fairness to everybody at the club, they were working tremendously hard to try to resolve that. So, and we knew that as well. We knew that people, and it wasn't a case, it was just where we'd ended up. It wasn't a case that people didn't care. There was a lot of work going on in the background to try to resolve the issues, you know. So, and I think the players had obviously a feeling for the club, but I think Ollie was a special person as well that they had a bond with. You know, so that would have came into the equation as well, I think, for everybody's thinking.
And then, like you said, at the end of that season, obviously the club kind of went into financial troubles. Everyone had to leave. You went on to Derry, and then after a short spell at Derry, you rejoined Bohs as manager then and brought great success there. How do you reflect on your time at Bohs? Like I said, it seemed like everywhere you were going, almost, you were just winning trophies.
Yeah, I was fortunate when I came back to Bohs that, you know, there was a real strong squad there, really good squad. And maybe that's probably why I got the job, because the squad was exceptional. We were probably short in one or two areas, and we brought in 3 or 4 real quality players to add to that squad. So it was strong. I mean, the Shell squad was strong, the Bow squad was as strong. And people always ask me that what was the best team. It was difficult to put into context. Both squads, different type of players, different characters, but 2 really, really good squads. they proved that as well by their success.
And then in 2010, there was a lot of like well-reported interest from Dundee United. Was that something that you were open to at that stage, like a move abroad?
Yeah, I travelled to Tallandice and I met Dundee United and had a really good conversation and came back to Bohs then. And they couldn't get an agreement between the two clubs, so it was disappointing, but it's football and it happens, so I just had to get my head down and concentrate on at that stage we'd brought in a lot of young players to Bohs, so it was just a matter of getting the head down and trying to make sure that we stayed in the division and we were competitive. So these, like I said, these things happen in football. Let's go back to the same question about, did I ever have a chance to go back? Yeah, I did. One or two clubs showed an interest, but it wasn't the right fit, and obviously the Dundee United thing didn't happen. So,
and obviously Bohs were going through, like, after the success you'd had 2008, you won the double. 2009, you won the league again. Then Bohs went into massive financial troubles, but like you stuck around. Like, was that difficult at the time, managing a team who was basically kind of falling apart? Like, they were losing a lot of their big players, and you were just playing with young lads. Was that difficult?
Yeah, it's difficult, but it was different time as well, and the club had been good to me. So we'd done a lot of work, and we brought in a lot of good young players, and some of them are still here. One or two are still around, and obviously a lot of them have done really well in the league. We brought in the likes of Bucco, who's still here, Roberto Lopez, Christopher Forrester, and a few others that we're really good players and have proven that over a period of time. Young Paddy Madden as well, who obviously went on and done really well for himself. So it was different because I'd probably been used to managing experienced players, and this was a different trait and a different group. So, but like I said, it's we brought Matt Doherty in as well. So there was a lot of good players came into the club and have done well for themselves. So that for me is success as well. When you look at things you've won, which is great, but when you also look and you think you've helped lads along the way, players to develop to be good players and good people as well. That's for me, that's as important as saying you've won whatever league trophies we've won. You see, lads still playing now, like some of the lads I mentioned, and obviously other people that are still playing, and you've had a hand in that. Well, then that's great as well to see that you've contributed to their careers and that they've done well for themselves out of the game.
And like you see with Matt Doherty, obviously he's gone on to literally play for like Atletico Madrid, Tottenham, like he's at Wolves now again, like massive clubs. Did you feel like he was that good at that age? Like when he was at Bohs?
No, listen, Matt was a bit younger than the other ones we took in, and Matt never played really for Bohs. We'd played on a Friday night. I can't remember who the league game was on. We played Wolves in a friendly on the Saturday, and Matt played and did really well. And I remember Dave Bowman asked me could he go for a few days over. He went over, and as he said, the rest is history. He obviously did really well for himself over there. Got a good move out and has had a fantastic career. He's made the best of his talent, worked hard to get to where he was, and he's still playing. He's still playing international level. So, yeah, he like I said, it's all down to him. The work that he put in to get himself to that level as a player, and like you said, the club he's played for, all the clubs he's played for are top clubs. So, obviously had real ability. Did I see him playing at that level? Probably not. It's probably a bit like a lot of other players. It's hard to see at that age where they're going to be, exceptionally talented like Matt was to get to the level he has played at.
And then November 2011, the move finally came around again with Hibernian came in for you. How was that at the time? Like, was it something that you kind of jumped at straight away, or was it something that you were a bit more hesitant at the time, or how did it come about?
No, it wasn't something that I was hesitant about. I felt it was the right time. It was the right fit. It was a big club. I'd known a lot about the Scottish Premier League, so I just felt it was the right time, it was the right fit. They were struggling at the time, so that was obviously a challenge. You're getting a job for that reason as well, that they were, I think when I went in, they were maybe either 10th or 11th in the Premier Division, and it was just making sure that they stayed in the Premier Division that season, and we managed to do that. So, but again, a bit like the other clubs I'm fortunate to manage, it's a brilliant club. Like everything was in place at Hibs, fantastic stadium, proper training ground, huge support, and all the backing that I needed within the club. So very fortunate to get that job, and thoroughly enjoyed my time there.
And like the first season, like I said, you'd come in November, you'd help them. Like they did look like they had a real good chance of going down. You kept them up, and you got them to a cup final. Like, that must have been a massive success at the time. You must have thought.
Yeah, well, see, like, people here will look at it like that, but we got hammered in the final by our big rivals, which was an absolute disaster. One of the biggest regrets I have in football. Keeping Hibs up, yeah, Hibs should stay up. We shouldn't have been in that position, but we were. We probably had to win 2 big games against Dunfermline, who were the one team down there with us. We managed to do that at East End Park and at Easter Road. So yeah, I suppose keeping them up was the remit. We should be in that position, absolutely not. So it's funny because I've only lost the only 2 Scottish Cup games I lost were the 2 cup finals in the period I was at Hibs. So it's I suppose bittersweet. We won 2 semi-finals at Hampden and lost 2 finals. So and where I've been as a manager, it's about winning. Unfortunately, being second or runners up in the cup final doesn't really matter from my end of it. Great occasions, brilliant occasions. To lead a Hibs team out against Celtic in the cup final for me was fabulous. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's only about results, and we lost both of them, unfortunately.
And like when you're looking back at them games, like did you ever, like I said, I know you said it felt like a disaster, but like do you kind of take in the moment and enjoy it when it's happening? Like not the result obviously, but like the build up to the final on the day, or are you just
Not really.
fully focused?
Not really. I don't like. There's so much going on and preparation and making sure things. You don't. I don't think you ever get into that mode as a player. I think all these things are when you look back. Obviously, you look back and you think, well, that was a good achievement and it was a good day. For other people, it wasn't a good day for me. But it's not something I think as a manager that you can enjoy too much in the moment. Maybe after, obviously, if you're successful, it's completely different. But when you're probably used to winning where I was, and it was disappointing more so than enjoying the moment as such.
And Lee Griffiths really like stepped up in his career when the time you were at Hibs. Like, did you feel like he was a massive player for you, and did you kind of see him kind of going on to play for Celtic and stuff like that?
Yeah. Look, Lee was a special talent. When I came in, he was there, and he was just a special talent. You could see that from day one. I was in there. Really good trainer on the pitch. Wanted to improve all the time. Brilliant goal scorer. Absolute technique was incredible. Did I think he could play at a higher level? Absolutely. I think he probably could have played at a higher level than he did. Obviously, he was a sensation when he went to Celtic. But as a finisher, he was a special player. Off both feet, wonderful left foot, very good in the air as well for a little lad. Yeah, he was brilliant for us that season. Absolutely brilliant. He scored some great goals. And like I said, he went on to better things, obviously.
And like I said there, with your first season, you came in, you helped the club stay up, got to a final. Your second season, which is your first full season, you get them to 7th place and another cup final. So, like, did you feel like you were really building something at that stage?
Yeah, we were a little bit unfortunate. We didn't make the top 6. I think we ended up with more points at the end of the season than the teams in 6th or 5th place above us, which is a little bit unusual. That was, yeah. I thought we'd obviously, when I went in, we were 11. Where we got to, obviously at a club like Hibs, you want to be in the top 6. That's the goal. That's what the club want to be at. But there was a lot of players that had left the club and trying to rebuild it. So I was supposed to finish 7th. And again, to get to the cup final, we would have seen that, yeah, as progress. It wouldn't have been success, but it was definitely progress from where we were. But again, losing the cup final in fairness to a very good Celtic side, was disappointing. Like I said, that season we had an incredible semi-final against Falkirk, where we were 3 down and ended up winning 4-3. So it was a memorable semi-final, to say the least. Not good for the nerves, but brilliant in the end. You can enjoy that occasion. That's an occasion where you can enjoy. I remember going onto the pitch at the end and the Hibs fans were singing away, and you're thinking, yeah, that's a bit of relief, because I know I would have got pelters if we had been beaten by Falkirk. So, yeah, I suppose that was progress that season. Yeah.
And then the following season, you resigned in November after coming in, avoiding relegation, then coming seventh, and then you were still in mid-table. Like you were 5 points off second when you left.
Yeah, I think we were fifth when I left. We'd played Hearts, we'd played Aberdeen the week before in the league game, and I just thought we were flat, really flat. They beat us at Easter Road. I think Derek McGuinness was the manager, and I just felt after that, I just thought there was something missing. And I just had to think about it. And then we played Hearts on a Wednesday night in a League Cup quarter-final, and we were exceptional. We should have beat Hearts. They beat us 1-0. Were a really good goal, but we played really well on the night. But we got beaten, and I just thought at the right time that we were in a good position. You know, we were fifth. We were still in the Scottish Cup. We hadn't played in that yet, and I just thought, you know, I'd come in sort of. For me, I'd improved the team. I'd improved where we were standings in the league. Like you say, we got to the cup finals, and I just thought, you know what, it might be the right time now just to step aside and let someone come in a good position rather than come in where I came in and, you know, struggling and make sure you stay up to you know, to someone to come in, be fifth in the league, like you say, 5 or 6 points behind second place, I think, at the time. So I just felt it was the right thing to do. I went to see the chairman, Rod Petrie. Obviously tried to persuade me to stay, but it made me mind up that I just felt, listen, this is the right time for someone to come into a club that's in a good position rather than come in and struggle. And I made that decision in my own mind that, you know, was to step aside and let someone, like I say, have a bit of time and not come in under too much pressure. So that was the decision I made. Whether right or wrong, it's probably the wrong one in the end because Hibs got relegated. So from my point of view, that was really disappointing, and I felt a little bit guilty in that regard. But I felt it was the right decision to make at the time for me and for the club. But unfortunately, it didn't work out well for them in the end.
Now that you're in the director of football role, it's been a couple of years since you've been a manager. Like, do you ever miss being a manager, or are you kind of happy in the director of football side of things now?
No, I like the role I'm in now. I mean, I've been a director of football, I've been a general manager, and back into director of football. I feel that I've got a wealth of experience and knowledge that I can help managers in. You know, because I know what they go through, and I know how hard that job is. And people can be flippant a little bit in relation to managers, and managers lose their job. It's difficult, you know, because they do put a lot of work and time into it. And I feel I have that knowledge that I can help people with now. I enjoyed my time as manager, and I think I managed for about 14 or 15 years. Do I miss it? No, I don't think I do. Funny enough, I never miss playing either when I stopped playing. So I think I'm sort of one of them that I've had my time, I've enjoyed it, move on. I've had my time managing, coaching, I've enjoyed it, and I've moved on. So I don't look back. I look back and think, yeah, they were brilliant times. But I don't look back and think, geez, I missed that. I should have stayed a bit longer. I was right to stop playing when I did. I think I was right to stop managing when I did. So, no, I enjoy the role because I think I can give back a fair bit of obviously what I've gained over a long period of time being involved in the game, all different levels, and they're all different clubs.
8 league titles in Ireland across manager and playing. Like, I don't think there's many people who could say that many. Like, do you ever kind of reflect on your career much, or is it something where you're just focused now on your job, or do you ever look back and think...
I don't, to be honest, Adam. I don't. Like I said, I've done it and I've enjoyed it, and you know, I think someone asked me this recently. Like, winning things as a player, you can't be. It's good as a coach and a manager is great, but I think in that stage, you sort of, as soon as it's done as a manager, you're looking at the next one. How do I make it better? How do I improve the team? But I think as a player, to be part of a group of lads that can work together for one goal and win something, it's hard to describe what that is. And any of the ones we won, I certainly enjoyed. We certainly enjoyed this group of players. Any of the trophies or success we had at any club, because I think that's important as well, that you enjoy the success you have, because it doesn't come around too often. I've been very fortunate to win a fair few trophies in my career. But do I look back and think, no, I don't. I look back at the memories I had of it, definitely, and they were good times.
Pat, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for everything. It was great to hear from you. Great stories.
No problem. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.